So, good morning, everybody, or good evening, or good night, depending on where you are. It's 11 o'clock in the morning here in rainy Milan. My name is Giacomo Bellani. I am the co-founder of ReviewerCredits.com, and I'm really glad that today we are hosting this webinar. I'm really proud of what we have achieved and that you will hear in the next few minutes. The speaker today will be Francisco Grimaldo from the University of Valencia. He's a information science professor, but before giving him the stage, I would like to briefly introduce you why I think, why at ReviewerCredits we think this is really an important milestone, an important achievement. I don't know if you know much about ReviewerCredits, but our goal, our mission is provide certification and rewards to the hidden, oftentimes hidden work of peer reviewers. And since the very beginning of our activity, we started to record and certify the peer review activity that each scientist and individual did for the journal. Clearly, this was a starting point. We started, as many others, from counting the peer reviews, but we heard many times, and we were also aware that just counting the numbers, it's a starting point, but it's probably not enough. And that an index that would evaluate actually the contribution, the performance of the reviewers into what in their reports was really needed, was really necessary. And that's how we got and met this F3 index by the group of Flaminio Spazzoni here at the University of Milan. It was really an excellent finding that a group here in Italy was working on measuring the performance of peer reviewers. And so this was our starting point. We started from a paper that was published. Rather than coming up with something out of our mind, we wanted to look for something that was published and peer review in itself. And that's why we decided to start evaluating the performance of peer reviewers by this reviewer contribution index. Also, we started to develop this not by ourselves, but thanks to the connection with the University of Milan, and mostly with the University of Valencia and the group of Francisco. It was really a great experience for us. A classical, I think, a fruitful experience of interaction between university and industry, where industry has some resources, has some needs, and shares these needs with the university, and they both work together to achieve a common solution. And it worked really well. I think that, as you will hear, as everything in this world, the F3 index, or the Reviewer Contribution Index, as we named it, is not perfect. Clearly, I was just talking to a person who is very knowledgeable in peer review a few days ago, and she was telling me that she has some reservations and there are issues with the F3 index. And of course, this is the case, but you know, you have to have a starting point from where to build upon. So I think that this gives you a little bit of an overview of our vision at ReviewerCredits on why we did want to implement a reviewer contribution index into our metrics. And once again, let me tell you, I think we are really proud to say that despite not being one of the largest companies in this field, for the first time we were able to have this achievement. in this webinar, which will not last longer than 45-50 minutes, including questions that I hope you will send us through the platform. You will hear first an introduction from Professor Grimaldo on how the F3 index works. It's not I wouldn't say it's complex, but it's not like A divided by B and you get it, okay? There is some complexity behind it that has to do with the fact that it deals with peer review, and we will hear this from Francisco shortly. And then afterwards, I will try and show you how the Reviewer Contribution Index works in real life, or at least works live in our platform. I must really thank Angelo Ventriglia, who is our product owner and who became, after Francisco, Federico, and Flaminio Squazzoni, the fourth world lead expert in the F3 index during the development phase. And he also put together this webinar. So thank you very much. And without further delay, I will pass it to Francisco for the next 15-20 minutes. And again, he will tell you how the F3 index, from which the Reviewer Contribution Index came, how it works. Francisco.
Okay, so I was saying that I'm very happy to be here, happy to know that the F3 index is being useful for the community through reviewer credits. Again, this is a work that we did together from people from the University of Valencia and people from the University of Milan. And I'm going to show you some interesting things about this metric. We all know that peer review activity deserves recognition and rewarding. And even though there are different metrics to quantify this activity of scientists as authors, it's not such common to see metrics to quantify the activity of reviewers. There are actually platforms that do this recognition task, but up to now, they have mostly or mainly followed the approach of counting or aggregating the number of reviews being done. And in our opinion, there is room for improvement. Because, see, I mean, the paper, the artifact, the thing that we are evaluating when we review a draft is itself defining a context. We all know that it's not the same reviewing one paper or another. So we think that that context is very interesting when creating these metrics. And that this information about the performance, the activity, can be useful for the community and also valuable for editors and journals that can look into the factors they are interested in. So today we are presenting a tool that can assist everybody in doing this reward of high-performing reviewers. Let me say that, well, we published this as the F3 index. Now Reviewer Credits has adopted it and named it as Reviewer Contribution Index. We will see it afterwards. And the idea, again, is to have a metric that ranges from 0 to 100, and that it will be recalculated once a week to measure this contribution, this activity that is done mostly on voluntary basis, but that we again think that is very important to measure and to properly recognize and reward. But what about this context I was speaking about? We know that there are papers that are more theoretical, that have more statistics or that focus on methodology, etc. So basically, we thought that we need this relative context and environment to measure the performance. That's why we thought as the index working this way, I'm going to explain. So let's have two reviewers that are assigned to the same manuscripts. Then somehow these benefits that we can reward them because of their work are shared depending on how the review is how much the review is pertinent, informative, or if they do it quick. I mean, it's a timely review. So we put this three factors or three dimensions into play. See how we are not measuring the quality, but what we are again measuring is the activity. Regarding how informative it is, we use the report length as a proxy. There has been a lot of previous work on this, and it's interesting to have long reports that inform authors not only about the paper being necessarily good or bad, but also how to improve it. So the developmental value of peer review. The other factor is the delivery time. I mean, the time elapsed since the reviewer accepted the review and then the report is delivered. And the third is the alignment of this report with the editorial line, with the editor decision, which we name like this, the alignment of the editorial decision to reviewer recommendation. Again, as I've said, this does not mean that other factors could be introduced or are important. That depends on, the editor and their focus. So we are starting from these three objective factors. And we are gonna do this. So imagine that we had these characters of Cluedo. And let's put them in pairs every time they review the same manuscript. And then let's try to share one unit of benefit. So for instance, if we see Professor Plum and Reverend Green, we see that we have 0.7 and 0.3 in both sides of the link. So that means that of that unit, a higher part was obtained by Professor Plum against or compared to Reverend Green. How can we calculate this share? What we do is we follow the Laplace rule of succession. That means let's take an indicator for each factor. So again, the report length. And let's follow this simple rule. As you can imagine, the rule ideally divides the benefit in two, 0.5 and 0.5. But if there is one person outperforming, then it starts getting a higher part of the share. We do this for these three factors, and we start connecting people, okay? Let me highlight two characteristics of this sample network I'm showing today. So, for instance, see how Mrs. Scarlett, Reverend Green, and Professor Plum are connected. These three reviewers are connected because they actually are reviewing the same paper. So again, a context, it's being defined through this network. And also see that, for instance, by now, Miss Peacock cannot be directly linked or to Reverend Green, or can be, because actually, even though we cannot see a line, it's like if we had an explicit line connecting everybody and sharing in a balanced way all these metrics. So this is a thing that it's important because we don't need, in our technique, we don't need everybody to be connected to everybody, because there is an implicit link connecting all of us and saying that in principle, if we do not have information, Miss Peacock is performing the same as Reverend Green. Okay. Let me also say that a couple of examples that the fact that if we check the connection between Mrs. Scarlett and Miss Peacock, the fact that Miss Peacock got a higher share, 0.6, compared to Scarlett, is better than the fact that Miss Peacock got higher benefit, 0.6, compared to Master, Colonel Master. Because see that Miss Scarlett, in turn, outperformed compared to Professor Plum and Reverend Green. That's to say that direct connections or connections are linked one to another, and then we can construct kind of a system of equations. Mathematically, this is represented as a squared matrix. And then, following a well-known rating and ranking method, the name of it is the Skinner method, we can solve this system of equations. Okay, the way to solve it is to calculate the agent vector. Actually, a vector assigning a number, which is this number we were speaking about, to each of the persons in this network. So that's how, using algebra, that's how we calculate this metric for each of the factors. The numbers of these metrics are distributed in a Gaussian way, and this has two important properties. On the one hand, this distribution puts newcomers in the middle. So we are not penalizing newcomers. Another concern could be, but are we promoting hyper-productive people? No. I mean, again, to have a higher value of this index, you need to perform and to do activities very well during all your work as a reviewer. So these are two very important properties of the index. Again, it does not penalize newcomers, nor it promotes hyperproductive people. And then on the other hand, we standardize these factors. By now, we are putting the same focus on each of these three factors, which are how informative, timely, and again, aligned with the editorial decision the reviews are. So we standardize those values to have a value between 0 and 100, and then we calculate the mean of this rating for these three factors, okay? More interesting properties about this review contribution index is it is robust. What I mean by robust? I mean, there is low correlation, we have checked that, there's a low correlation between the index and raw statistics, such as, I mean, as I was saying, the number of reviews being done, or the length of the report, etc. So, I mean, it's resistant to noise or to one factor trying to lead or to drive the index. So it's stable and it doesn't change even though there is local variation, such as we could think of outliers, such as one day I did it shorter, or one day I didn't have the time and it took me more days than usual. Still correlation and doing random variations. On the other hand, one could think, yeah, but am I possible to improve? Am I possible to change my index? Yes, you are, because even though it's stable, it's sensitive and adjustable to changes. That means that the index is day by day calculated and then fine-tuned when new information arrives, when new papers are reviewed. Okay, so if we start reviewing papers and then performing better or worse in one of these factors, then these variations are gonna produce new indexes, and that's why I say that reduces the experience rank correlation. Okay, so again, interesting properties, robustness, but still sensitiveness. And well, just to wrap up, I think that this index shows a transparent box in the sense that it's not the black box. The criteria are clear, are straightforward, and we have tested this ranking with the Journal of Artificial Societies and Simulation, which is a journal in the first quartile of the Journal Citation Reports. We have applied it to 1,000 reviewers. We are using a well-tested rating method, which is the Kinner's method. And this is the result. This is not only technicalities. This is the result of a cross-sectoral, cross-disciplinary collaboration that we had for 4 years in these new frontiers of peer review cost action. And so thank you very much. I will be open to any question, and the best thing is that you see the index working. So.
Okay. So I think I have the podium again. I'm looking to Angelo to see if everything is well. You hear me? Well, okay. So as thank you so much, Fran, because really it's not easy, but it's not. You made it simple, really. So I think it's very clear, and maybe all the maths behind it. It's rather complex, but it is important that one gets the concept, and I think you did an excellent job in this. As I was saying, I would try to in the next 10-12 minutes show you how we implemented the F3 index, moving to a reviewer contribution index in reviewer credits, and how this works in real life, because moving from a nice idea to real life sometimes can be tricky. So first of all, what is the evolution from the F3 index to reviewer contribution index? First of all, I think in part it's the use of a different name, because F3 index, of course, is very rigorous, but maybe it is not that obvious to everybody that has to do with the peer review and the contribution. And that's why we prefer to adapt a name which is more explicit. And also we wanted to highlight the fact that although there is in a way a comparison between, there might be in a way a different performance between different reviewers, still this is a contribution that someone gives, and there's always a contribution coming from peer review activity. We also slightly changed the number, because it looked a little bit like a batting average in baseball, if you like baseball, in the original version. So it was like 0 point, blah, blah, blah. And so we just moved it between 0 and 100. So, but it's just linear. So if you want to go to RCI to F3 index, it's just very, very linear. Normally you keep the thank you slide at last, but I wanted to open my part with some thanks. I already mentioned Angela and Fran, and I would also like to thank the journals and the publisher that helped us testing the plugin, testing the system. Time is precious for everybody, and so really kudos and thanks to these people that together with us engaged in a novel project with their time, their competence, and their energies. So let's take a step back. As you heard from Fran, in order to calculate the F3 index or the reviewer contribution index, you need data. And of course, there's a part of the data in our system which is manually uploaded, but at the same time, we developed the integration for journal and manuscript platform. We have a fully working integration with editorial manager, with OJS from PKP, and with Alpha from Pensoft. At the same time, it is possible to upload for every journal a CSV in our website, generated by other platform of submission. And so just to let you know that irrespective of the reviewer contribution index, once we get the data, we use it for, or we take advantage. We use it to for the main our core focus activity, which is the certification of peer review for individuals and for the journals. We recently introduced a feature with the geographic and gender distribution of reviewers to assess for each journal the inclusivity. And in a world where the risk of predatory publishing is always there, a certification of peer review activity for journals is important. Clearly, for the reviewer contribution index, a little bit more data is required. I don't want to make these too technical, but at the same time, probably some of you are interested in knowing how they could implement the reviewer contribution index for their journals. So a little bit of details, I think it's important to be provided. Of course, we need the data regarding the report of the peer review. So uniquely assigning the peer review data to a journal, so the data of the journal clearly, and the peer reviewer. And then we take those data that are required to calculate the F3 index, so the temporary manuscript ID and the number of revision, although this is a question I will ask Fran. I think the F3 index only takes into account the first round of revision, the dates, the reviewer recommendation, and the length of the report. I would like to stress that once again, we do not collect the original manuscript, the text, in the peer review report. This stays between the journal and the reviewer. We just need the least data possible to calculate the reviewer contribution index. And then, of course, we need to have the editorial decision linked to the manuscript. So again, the unique manuscript ID and the editorial decision to see if it matches with the reviewer recommendation, as this is an important dimension to calculate the F3 index, and hence the reviewer contribution index upon. So how do we retrieve the data? At the moment, for time being, we have a fully operational plugin for OJS 3. Whatever, versions 3 above 3. And there are two ways by which these data are gathered from the ReviewerCredits platform and transferred to us for the calculation of the reviewer contribution index. I will show you in a minute. But of course, we are open to integration with any other submission platform. We have an API which is ready to receive this data, or these data can be easily uploaded through a CSV file. So should any other type of platform interested in a calculation of the reviewer contribution index for the journal hosted on that platform, that's technically already in place on our side. So just a couple of notes on how this works for the OJS. So the version of the plugin is 2.1, and you just download it from our website. Those of you who have the plugin already can know a little bit how it works. In the plugin setting, you will set your access credentials to ReviewerCredits, and as you see, you are able to, you might decide to enable synchronization of further data, of further fields for the reviewer contribution index. And the image is there to let you know that there's a video by which you can display you can get information on how to install the plugin. And then, of course, the reviewer is prompted with the option whether she or he wants to transfer review data at all to ReviewerCredits, and the additional options to transfer the additional data for the reviewer contribution index calculation. As you heard from Fran, a relatively large set of data is necessary to calculate the F3 index, as it's a matter of comparison between the different individuals. And so we also give the option to create a custom peer review report to be exported directly from OJS, and then it can be directly imported in our website through a function which is there. And finally, once the data is transferred, how do we display this in our website, and what is its use for the reviewers and from the journals? Well, first of all, we believe that journals are interested in assessing who are the reviewers who gave a greater contribution. Already they have, and it can be calculated also by us, the amount, the number of peer reviews that are performed. But as you can see here, the journals will have in their back office reserved area scoring for the contribution of their individuals. And as you see, there is the global index, and also this is split in the 3 dimensions that Francisco mentioned. So the time, the agreement with the editor, and the length of the report. And so each reviewer can also be evaluated, or the performance of each reviewer can be evaluated based on these parameters. And clearly this data can be exported, and it's, and then each journal, each publisher can decide how to deal with this data, and how to select reviewers and to reward reviewers based on this data. And this, of course, will also be shown, the presence of the F3 index will also be shown on the peer review certificate for the journals. At the same time, we present each reviewer with her or his reviewer contribution index, and clearly we give the option to, well, first of all, each individual on our website can decide to make her or his profile fully private, so no data is shown to anybody. But at the same time, an individual can decide to have a public profile, but not to show the reviewer contribution index for many reasons. So the data is there for the individual to have, let's say, an internal benchmark of her or his performance as reviewer, but decide not to show this or to make visible to everybody. And clearly, as the data presents a little bit of complexity, as I just mentioned, we have a dedicated page on our website where everything is explained rather clearly, I would like to say. And clearly, finally, this data is also shown in the individual peer reviewer certificate, where the two data are together. You show the number of the peer review and the, let's say, individual contribution, the average individual contribution to these peer reviewers. And so we think that this also gives the possibility to split how many reviews, so the quantity and I wouldn't say the quality, but overall the performance of each peer review report. This is my last slide, and I then hope there will be some questions. I already have some. So the first point is we believe that it's a way, the reviewer contribution index provides an indication both to individuals and to journals or journal editors. Reviewers get a feedback on their activity, get a benchmark, may decide how and may follow this to see their improvement, benchmark towards other colleagues. And exactly as with other metrics of publications, it does not tell everything about the value of a scientist, but still it is, I think, one of the possible components. And of course, for editors and journals, this is a tool, a reference metric to monitor the performance of peer review, not just based on the impression of the editors, which is of course very important, and not just based on the editors' impressions, but also on data-driven indexes. Identifying, for example, and recognizing the most active peer reviewers in terms of number and performance, and so to have another tool to manage the pool of peer reviewers, rewarding them, and so forth. So I think we stayed in the 40 minutes. I'm sorry if there's been a few technical issues. I would stop here. Well, of course, you know how to contact us through the website, but really Angel is the person to get in contact with if you're interested in learning more about the Reviewer Contribution Index and to implement it for your journal. And so with this, I think I can stop here. So let me, okay. Now I see Francisco is back. Like this, so I think you can hear me anyway. Can I start with a question to Francisco? So one of the criticism I heard from this person I was talking to with about the F3 index and hence the derived Reviewer Contribution Index is that it is open to gamification. So someone learns how to manipulate, and so for example will try to make a longer peer review to make it to get a higher score and so forth. So how do you think it's we should take this risk into account? And the second question is much more simple, is whether you, just to make it clear to everybody, if the F3 index is counted only for the first round of peer review.
Thanks for the question. Well, yeah, we were actually, I'll start from the last question. We are actually using the first round of review because we think that this is the uninformed round. I mean, all reviewers are completely blind to what other reviewers have said. And then afterwards, second, third round, etc., are kind of a agreement process or in which, well, we are going towards a decision ideally. So we are influenced by the others from what we have read about the letter of decision. Okay, so that's why we are using the first round. And about the possibility of playing strategically. I mean, any index can be considered as having these problems. As other indexes, such as the number of reviews, there is a lot of people doing a suspicious high number of reviews, and of course there can be people that tries to do the reviews longer but saying anything. So that's why I was saying that in the end, as in any other situation, the editors have the knowledge and have the editors in the journals read the reviews. Also, in the case of open peer review, we all see if you are writing silly things or writing blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, all metrics, in my opinion, what is important is that metrics are clear and transparent, as I've said. Then all metrics need to be under control and see that nobody is playing or trying to get benefit from how it works. So again, coming back to security, how secure an algorithm is not the secret, but how strong it is. Here we have a strong algorithm in the sense that we have a lot of connection, but we can identify outliers of people playing badly. So
okay. And if we were to do an F4, F5, so an evolution, which parameters do you think should be taken into account? I mean, you could think of adding multiple dimensions, right? What would you think would be meaningful?
Yeah, we have a newer work already published in print, in which we proposed other or complementary dimensions that could be added. So this F4, 5, etc. One of them is getting into the report and start identifying parts of the report that speak about, for instance, the materials and methods, or the literature and previous work, or experimentation, analysis of results, statistics. So looking at the different parts covered by the review report, I mean, is the right way to go.
Okay. Angelo, should we? Okay, so I read the question. One question has to do with the manuscript length, and if that should be taken into account as a factor, to be considered. That's for you, Frank. if the manuscript length should be taken into account.
Well, I don't really think so, because well, not directly, because the manuscript is implicitly creating this context, but it's the same for the two reviewers sharing the benefit. So, I mean, it could be to understand how other variables work, such as I was saying. I mean, you shouldn't maybe take into account the statistics if this work has no statistics. but that's the way I think it could be included and incorporated, or at least a first step.
So, you're welcome. Thank you. We got a thank you message. Does the comparison between reviewers always happen on the same manuscript reviewed, or can two individuals be compared on different manuscripts?
Yeah, they can. I mean, if two people are reviewing two different papers, then they kind of have to share the benefit of having reviewed one and the other. So from that point of view, I mean, two individuals and two manuscripts or n manuscripts, what we do is to aggregate and accumulate the benefits that have been obtained from each manuscript. And I always say, again, two reviewers. One could say, okay, but one manuscript can be reviewed by three. Then what we do is we construct and we create all possible pairs between the three of them. So that's why I created that loop in the network.
Yeah, and it's probably, I think, even more efficient to have 3 or 4 people reviewing the same manuscript in terms of calculation of the index, isn't it?
Well, I don't think so, because actually this one of the strengths of the method is that even though one manuscript is only reviewed by 2 people, then as we have other manuscripts creating new links, and the network helps you to construct the whole thing. So it's not necessary that you need a lot of reviewers or people reviewing the same manuscript, but the fact that somehow we all as a community are connected is what makes this ordering global and interesting. Again, remember that it's not necessary that all of us
are completely connected. Because if we do not have any information following the Laplace rule of succession, we don't have that indicator connecting two people, then what we have is 1/2 of possibility of being better or worse, so to say, which is, I mean, we don't have information for that. So again, the index can manage in a good way partial information. It doesn't need a complete picture.
Okay. One, I think, last question, if we have still time, is whether, I think we briefly touched upon this, whether it's also a metric for journals, like if journals can be compared according to their, let's say, average F3 index, because clearly also journals are interested, might be interested in benchmarking their peer review process, see how efficient it is as compared to other journals. So do you think the F3 is useful to this purpose, or is it meant just to compare individuals?
Well, the F3 index is characterizing individuals, but I think that the journal can put together all these individuals that are part of their board or are part of their pool of reviewers and say, hey, I have these reviewers and they have these reviewer contribution indexes. So I mean, this describes the peer review process of the journal, and somehow by describing the peer review process of your journal, you are able to compare your peer review process to other journals. So I think you can do that, but always by referring to the index of the pool of reviewers you are relying on.
Okay, very good. I think it's time to close if there are no further questions. I would like to thank once again Francisco for the great support given to ReviewerCredits for the development of the index, and also Danny Garcia, who was here with us for a period working on it. Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for your time, and I really hope you will get in contact to learn more about the F3 index and implementing it for your journals or your publishing ecosystem. So with this, I think we can close, and thank you very much.